Hi and welcome to another episode of the CEO's Address. I'm Greg Newman, the Group Chief Executive of Onyx Capital Group, and I'm joined with Martin Shearman-Brettle, who is our Head of Production at Onyx Capital Group. Now, I'm sure you've seen, if you're on this channel, that we do a hell of a lot of different types of content, different types of production. It's been going for quite some time now, and it's a huge part of the marketing and brand push. You may be surprised or may not be surprised that a hell of a lot goes into this, and a hell of a lot of thought and hypotheses and experimentations and iteration goes into this. It's something I'm hugely proud of at Onyx, and I'm also hugely excited about the future because of the team we have, and obviously Martin's a crucial member of that. So thanks, Martin, for being here. I know it's not comfortable you being in front of the camera.
It's completely unnerving. It's like, how many times have I been on the other side of that camera and like, this is like sweet revenge or something.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's where to start, right? So you've been involved for quite some time, but actually from more of the outside and then more full time. So why don't we start, 2019, I was doing more of the LinkedIn style videos on kind of iPhones and that kind of stuff. Then we got our first studio, which was in Chiswick, had some contractors, had someone else kind of bringing that together. And then as it started to pick up, you kind of had your first involvement. So
yeah, so it's coming in was through a guy called Ninos. So Ninos, anybody doesn't know him, he's a contractor who's been doing media for you guys for ages now, hasn't he?
I think it's 5 years now. Yeah.
But me and Ninos have known each other for like going on 10 years plus. So we've had many misadventures in terrible television.
Okay.
Some of the things we've worked on, I won't speak about here. But yeah, I'd been working with Ninos on some of my own stuff for a little while. So I've been doing a lot of esports stuff and bringing him in as a contractor. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned you guys were looking to upgrade your studio, that you had some sort of legacy kit that wasn't quite right. Mm-hmm. Could I come and have a look at it, give some advice about what to do with it? And that's how the London studio sort of evolved. Mm-hmm. And we upgraded it from there. But from there, I occasionally would do a few little bits of contracting here and there, mm-hmm. Alongside the esports stuff I was doing at the time. And it was the audiobook which sort of like really got me in. Mm-hmm. When you just written World of War Derivatives and were looking to put that out as an audiobook, and Mari, who was running the production at that time, she was like, do you know anything about doing audiobooks? So I'm like, yeah, I do, yeah. And then promptly went home and read up everything on how to do it. I had, I still have an audio suite at home, so I felt comfortable on that side of things. So I was like, yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. But then I looked up all the logistics about how to publish an audiobook in Amazon and everything, and did all the research, and I went, yeah, I can do it. And there was just something about sitting down with you guys.
It was all basically done remote, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was done remote. Yeah. So it was sort of like, I think it was like the tail end of people working remote a lot. So the pandemic was sort of not so much over, but it was in its like tail end. Remote working was still quite commonplace at that point. So I'm sitting in my bed. I've got Post-it notes all over my room for the books. I'd read it like 2 or 3 times already, and I had loads of notes on it. And it was just recording it again and again, listening to it again and again. And the more I listened to it, the more I was like convinced that I was hearing something very honest, very true. There was a mission in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a book that's full of data, and it's very analytical, but there was sort of like this pumping heartbeat throughout the whole thing, and I resonated with it quite impactfully actually, which was sort of like the democratisation of oil. And my own journey, I've been looking at the democratisation of broadcast, because I was like, for going into broadcast was so hard from the background I came from, and it was almost like a closed shop, and it just felt like this is bullshit. It shouldn't be like this. Mm-hmm. It should be more open to people. This is technology is evolving. Why are we using legacy? Why are we stuck in the past? Why aren't we moving forward? Why aren't we making this more available? Especially in the YouTube world we live in at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think this is obviously this is why I guess it was a good match, because we had enough grounding so you could see what we were doing, and obviously the book, as you say, but you are the type of person that wants to just get stuck into things and find out how to make it work. And as you said, you bought into the democratization story, which is not a story for one area, it's for everything. That's where the world is going. And so I think it's not what you'd think, right? Like someone deeply involved in media, never really been involved in financial markets at all, resonating with that story. But that's what I love, because there's so many ways to look at this, and it's such a huge, I mean, oil is 30% of our energy needs. Energy is a huge part of our lives. So it is very important, but it's funny how you can translate that kind of like mission statement to a lot of things. So that I think that, to be clear, was like a huge part of like why it made sense to kind of take on this project. But also the working style that we've both got is like, we'll make it happen. And we're not into like, let's build some corporate business. And like, I got a proposal for a studio and how to run it. We're like, you need all these executive producers and you need this. I'm like, it just doesn't look to be going that way. That's the old way of doing things. I need people who can see, we'll find our way there, however it needs to be done. And we can go into this more like that. We're endlessly doing this, right? Like disrupting even within media, how to do the next thing, how to do the next thing after that. But I guess just for people out there as well, you said esports was your background at the time. That's what you're working on quite tightly.
Yeah.
But before that, like your general career?
Yeah. So like coming into television was interesting. It was sort of an accident how I ended up on the career path I ended up on. It was like I'll spin it around to where we are at the moment, which is like one of the things I noticed here at Onyx. When we're employing people for the media department, one of the things Alex and myself, because Alex is the head of media, one of the things we've noticed is employing the right person is more important than necessarily the skill set and experience that they have. You know when you've got the right person, you know when they fit into your team. You can teach skills, experience. You grow that as you go throughout your career. What you can't sort of like generate is that right, mental attitude, that right approach to the workplace. And there's a very unique way of working here at Onyx. And so, I've always benefited from that myself, because when I went for my first job within TV, it was at a place called Easy TV. It was a startup for a shopping TV to try and TV channel to try and rival QVC, which failed miserably. But I was just starting up. I've been trying to find a job for years out of uni and not succeeding, because getting into TV was impenetrable. Only way you're going to get in is through a terrible sort of like production, and this was a terrible production, but headed up by a really good guy called Marcus Ashcroft. He was sort of seasoned in the industry, knew his stuff, and somehow I managed to get an interview at this place. And I'd applied as the sound engineer for it, and we're getting on famously well in the interview, and everything's going well. And in the interview, he said, "I've got some good news and I've got some bad news." He said, "Good news, there's definitely a position here I think that's good for your skill set." I was like, "Oh, brilliant." "Bad news, the sound role's gone." I'm like, "What other?" To this point, I'd be concentrating on sound completely. So I was like, what the hell job is going to be there for me? And he was just like, "I'll take you down to the gallery and I'll show you around," and look around the gallery. And, "This is awesome." It's like, "We want you to do something called racks. I see you've got racks experience on your CV." And as a kid, I'd worked for a charity video duplication Christian charity, and they used to duplicate Christian videotapes from around the world to send out to churches and stuff. And they had something called a racks, which is just basically a row of video machines. You put one tape in one machine, and then you just copy it over, your program over to all the other tapes and send them out, duplicate them on the racks. And I put that down on my CV, racks experience. He goes, "Here's the racks." And it was a load of panels with flashing lights and knobs and buttons. And he's just like, "Well, and I explained what I'd done. And he was just like, "Oh, you'll be fine." He just gave me the job anyway.
Because he thought you could be the person to figure it out, essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's been your career. And then it moved on. You worked at Sky News?
Sky News, yeah. So Sky, again, that was another one I fell into by accident. So that was, I actually got into that through Sky Poker. So most of my television experience to that point had been with really low budget stuff, because, like I say, the industry in the in the noughties and early tens was impenetrable. And so I'd been working in like shopping TV, quiz TV, you know, those late night sort of phone up and get scammed shows that, you know, the police
So
got
even the
involved in.
production behind media was very much its own infrastructure and own like protectionist environment in a way.
Very much so, yeah, very much
So
so.
it's exactly the same story, really. Like, I guess that's why you resonated with it. You could see there's divides for political reasons, I guess, and all that kind of crap. I think what I'd like to, we can keep talking about along those lines, but also I think what might be interesting for viewers as well is there is definitely a two-pronged thing here, right? We want really good infrastructure that can basically power the media and the content so that it speaks for itself in terms of quality, so it doesn't need to basically diminish the content another way, but it can also drive it forward and allow people to really be powerful in what they're saying because, you know, the visuals and audios are so good. So that's obviously like a big part of it. But the other part, I think, is the artistry, right? I mean, we did your psychometric profile, like heavily perceiving, and I think that's very important. Like when we have our talks, you can't just be so rigidly, well, if you need this, you need chong, chong, chong. Like speaking to someone in tech, it's like there are engineers who will say, or infrastructure engineers who will say, I know what you need this system. But there are also infrastructure engineers who say, but there's a cleverer way to do it if you think about this and the modern day technology, and you're very firmly in that latter characterization.
Yeah.
So I guess like the workflow at Onyx, and it's not like I'm trying to put people off, but I want people to know like just how much thought and process gets behind it. So I guess in your mind, like, how do you think, what is behind our general kind of guidelines for when we create content from a design and production point of view?
Yeah, so it's actually really healthy because we've got, you know, a good team that looks at the problem in different ways. I could talk about the way I look at it, which is I like to look at the end product first. So it's what do people perceive in their mind as what will be the ultimate version of what they would like to see. And, you know, in conversations with yourself, quite often you've got a very cinematic way of looking. So you notice there's a lot of our content which looks quite cinematic. And that's because I'm working backwards from like, you know, what's the product we would really like to put out? How would that look? And then
sorry, I just don't want it because we should really go through, because we never really had this conversation.
No, we haven't. No.
It's cinematic in the right context, right?
Yes, absolutely.
If we're going to do high production, it needs to be high production.
Yes.
And what does high production even mean? You can spend an absolute fortune through what you'll generically just say as someone who never worked with production is just, don't worry, trust me, it's high quality. But it's good to be like, what does high quality mean in the context of how we believe it to be? So cinematic is, if I'm going to get in front of a camera and deliver something for a product like the announcement for retail or wider group initiatives,
yes,
it's got to be a highly cinematic thing because it's quite a cinematic kind of release. You're not going to do that kind of cinematic approach for a LinkedIn video where you're trying to actually get across, I'm speaking to you and I want you to feel like I'm in the room speaking with you. So that you can't overproduce that because it's just going to look like there's a barrier in between. So that is quite a big distinction. And like we've discussed, like I want in this scenario, it has to come across like we're a serious business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or we're a slick business or whatever. And that's the discussions which I think get quite interesting. Because I'll just say, you know, I love David Fincher. I want that like slight blue twinge. And I don't know I don't have anywhere near the depth you have, but you bring that to life, right?
Yeah, but if you think about it, like it's a shop window at the end of the day. I mean, do you want your shop to look like garbage or do you want it to look
No, but there's slides.
Yeah.
What does slick mean to different people? Because some people say they love color schemes and they love brightness because they think, oh, an inclusion and that kind of stuff. But personally, I feel like some of the more direct and disruptive things we want to do that we're communicating that we're wanting to power through with this has to have that more darker, slightly darker theme.
Yes, absolutely.
It has to have, I love the blue twinge we've talked about, the filtering, because I think it gives that slick, powerful, efficient mode. But that doesn't necessarily work for other businesses. Like BP Shell, for example, have been pushing big time the renewables in the past 5-10 years. And they're very much going for the energy renewable colors, which is very much like oranges and yellows. And they want it to be bright. And that's a very different way of producing, no?
Yeah, there was a narrative there for the color scheme. Yeah, just to finish up what I was trying to say earlier, which is you know, working backwards. Very simply, it's you look at the end product and then figure out how you could do it with what you've got available. So you know, that's how you save spending like
But even that, you're like, okay, we might not strictly have this available, but if we were to do this, to
yeah, we can get close.
or no, but you say, or, you know, a lot of people would say, Greg, just give me £1 million and I'll da-da-da. You're like, well, I just need a bit of money and I can get this and we can scale it like that. And that's why I like those discussions.
I'm half Scottish. I don't want to spend money if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like, but going back to the color scheme side of things and the look of it all, and you know, David Fincher's reference is a really good one. I think what sort of like keyed me into the sort of like, it sounds horrible when you say a cold, hard, industrious look, but to me that says serious. That says, you know, we're not going to mess around. We've got a mission and we're moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's what that look and feel says to me. And I think it was like the first time we were doing something on the trade floor. And I'd never been on the trade floor before, and it can be overwhelming the first time you go in there. You know, it's got an atmosphere. It's got a vibe, you know, and it's you suddenly realize that you're not just in an any old job. You're in something that actually is quite serious. It is doing something, you know, that has impact.
And we'd be doing it a disservice if that didn't come across in the production. That's how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think spending time in that environment, and there was an immediate connect. And I remember I was working on a production years ago, and I had to stay in a hotel because it was an overnight production. And what's the name of the film? The one that was based on the financial crash.
Margin Call.
Yeah.
We both like that style. Yeah. Because they captured the entire thing happened overnight, right? The entire thing happened. Yes. When they had to bring out the CEO out of bed, helicopter him over, like it was people at 3 a.m. But it was clever because that was giving this, it's nighttime and people aren't even awake, and there's this huge thing that's about to be revealed to the world, and it's that suspense. Yeah. It was all captured in the darker theme nighttime thing. I think it was super clever.
And it's the atmosphere and the mood in that film. I mean, genuinely, when I first saw that, I'm watching this on a hotel TV, middle of the night, and it sort of scared me.
Yeah.
You know,
it was trying to build you up to that. The whole world is going to collapse, and we're in this room dealing with it right now. What are we going to do?
It felt like a waking nightmare.
Yes.
And and not that the trade floor necessarily feels like that, but there was a connecting tissue. Yeah, for sure.
Because it's not suspense like scary, like in the sense of like shock horror, like immediate thrills. It's the growing, dawning reality. So an element like you got the power from those actors and the power from those rooms, that all they're doing is sitting in boardrooms and suits. But it's the fact that it's keeping you on edge. So I understand what you're saying. On the trading floor, it is that vibe. This is the collective, you know, financial oil market. It really, like, big moves happen here. The entire world gets impacted. That level of seriousness and urgency, and I know what you mean, actually.
Yeah, because the thing is, like the financial crash, you know, you felt the reverberations of that as a day-to-day person.
Yeah.
You know, I had a very young family.
So this is the room where it happens type thing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's just like that. It dawned on me for sure that, like you say, there are actions that happen. And involvements that we have as a company that do shape what happens in the world. We are involved.
But you go across and you generically look and you catch us at the wrong time, early morning. There's people having a cereal. There's people you can't be that. If you present that visually as a representation of what we're doing, you're doing a disservice. So that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I think another thing as well is like when we're approaching environments for filming as well. So depending on the style of content, like we've gotten very into these like multi strands of content, you know. What's the point of doing the CEO address? Because we want a slightly different take on things, a deeper, long conversation. So how do we set it up? And we've chosen the office, which kind of makes sense. Inside the mines, we've gone across the road to our office there, and we've chosen, you know, a wider space, like almost giving that kind of therapy type thing. We've given loads of them. The studio obviously can't be overused because the studio speaks for news and all this kind of stuff. And the trading corner, if it's a trading corner, it should be in the trading floor. So I love all the thought behind that. And we're constantly going around all these offices, aren't we? Like trying to think about it. And I'll say, what about this one? And you're like, it's not going to work because how are we going to, the shot of the angle of the camera isn't going to capture this. And I love it because I'll be like, why don't we just get 2 couches in the middle of the trading floor and talk? And you're like, well, funnily enough, Yes, because we can get these mics that can cancel out everything around you and only pick up the noise that you're saying. And I just love that shit. I love like bouncing ideas, and you've got all the practical output of it, but we're both designing it as well. I find it very enjoyable.
The collaboration's amazing. I mean, like a lot of the things you were talking about there. I mean, it's difficult to talk about Alex when she's just sitting in the corner over there. But Alex will often have the content ideas. So like, you know, how to what is the narrative behind CEO's address? What is the narrative behind Inside the Minds? You know, where these things, that their heartbeat lies. And so, you know, it's taking your ideas, taking the ideas of some of the other collaborators involved,
and the personalities involved, how we're going to bring that out. Because I would say we're still yet to really extrapolate that out of Jorge. Jorge, we did one video off the cuff where he was actually out on the floor. It was definitely your idea. And we had the shark emoji and him saying, "Oh, I don't want to get bitten." That is Jorge's personality. We absolutely need to put him in a moving environment, like the Money Talks guy. I keep forgetting.
Yes, yeah. Because you showed me that.
Yeah. It's not that, but the people want it. Jim Cramer.
Yeah.
You know, you want the energy, the buzz, because that's his personality. You fit him rigidly in a studio. It's just not Jorge. Do you know what I mean?
You're clipping Jorge's wings. I pretty understand where Jorge's coming from.
Not on that note, we don't. Obviously, it's fine to say it, but you know, Jorge has his wonderful ways. He's very up for doing videos. When he's done them in China, and then you can just feel the production team screaming behind. The audio quality is terrible. I think he's actually gotten a lot better, right? But obviously, in essence, that is what he should be doing.
Yeah.
But it's as I say, we've got work to do to really put out the life of him.
Well, it was good. The last officials that we did, we actually got Jorge walking around.
Nice.
And there were animations and crazy things going on.
Perfect.
And you know, when you know, certain members of the team watched it back afterwards, they're like, "Oh my god!" But it is Jorge, and Jorge's got a really creative streak.
Well, we should talk about Woo Fridays then as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was something that confuses a hell of a lot of people. Like, what are you even doing? But again, if you think about what we're doing from a media and production standpoint, is telling our story. Everything's telling stories at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But it's trying to tell our story in multiple different ways, but there is a coherence to it. So why do you need this guy taking a piss out of people, taking a piss out of himself, doing weird stuff? Is it because you can't just chuck hours and hours of serious content at people that has no ways of prodding different interests and different information? He has a very short, snappy, and you've got to give him credit because it's his personality coming through. It's not like I sat down and said, "Vincent, can you do this crazy shit and just like be on camera?" No, it's his personality. He is very good at writing the scripts for it. They're succinct. He takes direction very well. And when he first started, it was actually meant to be serious. Him giving like a 30-second, this is what's happened in the market. But there were so many bloopers and funny stuff. We're like, this has got to evolve. And then by the time you got involved, it was like, right, how do we really take this on? So again, people will probably accuse it of being like just some gimmicky thing. A lot of work goes into it, and it's the subtleties of being like, come on, what's really behind that production quality? There's a lot of work. Is him standing up face to camera to get the urgency, but then you've done all these out of the office scenarios. There's music involved now, there's raps involved, there's all this crazy stuff that like you're capturing the essence of what Woo Fridays is and capturing the point of it, which is like humor, entertainment, but sharp, succinct points that still add value or still make a claim. I think it's hugely powerful. But I guess why I brought it up was because you in particular, it's just interesting to see what is the end goal, like you say, and if it's a very serious, in-depth discussion, or if it's a communicatable discussion thing to people individually, or if it's a studio-based piece. It's another completely different thing, which is how do we get this guy to entertain and for it to be sufficiently unique that requires your tapping into your perceiving brain. But just talk me through it a bit.
So Woo Fridays is a really interesting one because, like you say, you're quite right. It's tonally incredibly different to anything else we do. But you know, humor's a great tool. You know, you can get really serious concepts across through humor in ways you can't do normally. when you're just being serious all the time, sometimes, you need to add a little bit of sugar to the tea to make the tea go down. And it's that full stop at the end of the week. You've had a long, hard week. Most people watching you Fridays have been working their butt off all week. And right at the end of the week, there's this, guy standing up just taking almost a piss out of what's happened. And it's that brevity, that's that sort of like...
But crucially, he takes a piss out himself as well, though.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Self-deprecating, yeah.
So for me, it's the whole thing of the mission, democratization, level playing field. The big part of that is stop taking yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you've got an industry that is like, you're out and about, it's, you shouldn't say that, you're going to get in trouble. It's so uptight. What, for just talking and having a joke? Get over yourselves. And I think Woo Fridays is exactly meant to be doing that, right?
It's also, think about it from the transition from where we are now into retail. Okay, so you look at a lot of retail trading platforms and content that's out there. It's not always super serious. There is that sort of like, meme sort of like feel to some of it out there. And you've got to have accessibility to what you're doing. Woo Fridays isn't necessarily the most accessible thing because there's an awful lot of technical in there, and I think people don't necessarily realise that
But you still get a kick of watching it, even if you don't really know the underlying.
Yeah, like dropping a bomb on Vincent. That's got to be fun to watch, right?
It's random, but it's a serious company doing something slightly left field.
Yeah.
But do you see my point about, I was certainly briefed you on the state of the industry where you have a few big players who are, protectionist, and it's all about this kind of unsaid, way of being, which is don't say certain things, don't be outlandish. This is the oil market. It's utter crap. It's basically something that's so ripe to be taken down. And that's why it's been so shocking. And I was telling you, people aren't going to like this. And I think what's funny and probably aggravating for audiences is you go, what is this joke? This is what, like, these guys, well, what's he doing? What's he doing? And they all share it round and say, this guy's, we had someone internally showing us like a trade house being like, at best, this is like embarrassing. At worst, this is like seriously aggravating, Like, what do these guys not understand about trolls is what makes engagement. Engagement is what makes things thrive. So you can't not watch it. And that's on you. So if you don't like it and you can't watch it and you think it's disgraceful, don't watch it, but you can't not watch it.
I think like it's difficult. I'm going to be careful what I say here. I think the biggest compliment with Woo Fridays was when it rattled somebody.
Yeah.
And it was a very serious.
I wouldn't say somebody, it was a lot of people. But
yes.
Yeah. One particular event.
Yeah. And it was over the most stupid of jokes. It was. That was one of my more surreal moments, and oh, God bless. When often my surreal humour will, even internally within the department, will get groans of, "Oh, please stop doing this weird shit."
Yeah.
But even Vincent says it sometimes. But it was one of my more surreal jokes, which was like, Vincent had in his script, because he's a big anime fan, and he drew a reference to an event that had happened to a plot within an anime show. And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do this as an anime show. I'm going to make an anime character of Vincent. I'm going to put some silly anime sort of like effects on there and music and stuff. And I thought I'd put a piece of Japanese text over Vincent, which basically said, I ate a bowl of chicken shit. And I flashed that up, but but it could be translated as "eat shit," and that offended some people apparently.
Did it really? Yeah. I did not know this.
That was specifically. It was because I flashed up "eat shit" when they were talking about.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, well that's an example of like sometimes even I'm like, what the hell is going on?
But it was innocent.
But
it had nothing to do with oil. It was actually me trolling Vincent internally. But
yeah, that backfired maybe a little bit then. But that's the essence as well. You want to push these boundaries and see where it's going. But we're not intending to really deeply offend people.
No, absolutely
This is trying to take the piss out of ourselves, Vincent, the industry, just everyone stop taking themselves so seriously. And I think people resonate with that. Whether they agree, whether they do or not, I think
it's a negative reaction. That's still a good reaction.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like Also, when you think about it, a lot of those more surreal moments are definitely not directed at all. Because I mean, I'm not going to lie, I don't understand 9/10 of the things you guys understand. So when those surreal jokes drop in, they're very left to center because I'm coming at it from a completely different angle. And the last thing I want to do is offend anybody. Quite often
that is not who you are. That's the thing.
Yeah.
People behind this, I mean, I know I can be quite forthright and whatever, but like, you are certainly not a nasty person. There is nothing in you trying to rile people up. It is fun for fun's sake or serious for serious sake when it calls for it. And I think the balance is getting right. And look, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who hate this stuff, hate us, hate what we do. But I think we're at peace because we know there's a mission that makes sense here. And it's for the better of everyone benefits in this scenario. So it just doesn't feel like we need to answer to anyone. Unless maybe, the eat shit thing offends people in the wrong way and you didn't realize. I mean, that's something like, that's going to happen, I guess. But, you try and make adjustments. But someone getting offended because this is the oil market and you don't have a laugh in the oil market is ridiculous. And, no one's immune to being taken the piss out of. You've got the most powerful people in the world. There's memes and endless stuff on X. You can't avoid this. And what is the alternative? Like some dictatorship, authoritarian, protectionist environment. Like whoever you are, you ask yourself, really, is that the right thing?
If you can't look at yourself in the mirror and criticize yourself, then there's a problem.
And just to finish that off, like again, it's that production, bringing it back to production. Even if it looks cheap, it's meant to look cheap.
Yes.
And it's meant to make the point by being cheap.
The cheap things take longer to make sometimes. Really.
No, it's funny. Like you love your animation actually.
Yeah.
And I like it too, actually. I think it's got its place, and we've actually got an advert more for retail.
That's right, yeah.
That was very clever with that. The animation being essentially alluding to overly simplified, a gamification of trading, whereas we want people to be more serious, think about it, treat it like you can take ownership of your trading and become, empowered. And the evolution of the animation into, real people trading properly. I think that was very clever, and I really like that. And I think animation can actually really hone in the point sometimes, can't it? For some reason.
Oh, and the nice thing about that one was, we were having the meeting in the boardroom about, the marketing direction. And that particular advert was coming up, and I'm playing it through my head. And I remember you saying in the boardroom meeting, you hate this concept, because you could see in my face, I was like, And it was, I couldn't actually find a way to
convey.
Yeah.
Sometimes showing is, and you did it basically and just said, look at that. And I was like, actually, that's good.
Yeah. But it was crazy, because it was just like, I was like, I know what they want to have here. I can see it. And it's like, this is going to cost millions, it's going to take a lot to do. And I'm like, there's no way, God's green earth, I'm going to turn around and say, can we splash this on this?
But that critical thinking, being aware of the entire, basically cost, commercial, what are you actually trying to say?
Yeah.
That's what I love. So we had a PR company last year who were pushing for some big, highly produced advert that didn't really, you were very uncomfortable the whole way through, basically. And I can see why. Like we changed it to the video we've got now on the website right now, which is still highly produced cinematic, but it's much more to the point. And I guess your general point was, if it's a big statement that the company needs to make about what it's doing, it should come from the CEO. It shouldn't be
It has to come from the heart.
Yeah.
People have to know that it's difficult, because some people are just like, you work for the company, so you've drunk the Kool-Aid, you're singing from the hymn sheet, but it's genuinely not that. There is an absence of bullshit with a lot of the ways people think here, a lot of the things we do, and certainly the mission and statement.
But it gets reinforced by the people around you, so you believe in that. So you're always saying, that's not us. And that's what you were saying, that's not us. We are more to the point, direct.
There's an honesty to it.
But then I think that comes across as almost like a checklist in every bit of content we do. Yeah. Is this honest and direct? Is this how we talk? And that kind of tone of voice is the same across joke content, serious content, whatever it is. We maintain that, right?
Yeah.
And that,
It's like when we've got around the office various sort of like slogans and stuff, and it's the open and transparent one.
Yeah.
And that one really resonates with me because I don't like pulling the wool over people's eyes. You know, I've done enough horrible television in my lifetime to send me to hell for an eternity. You know, the last thing I want to be doing now in the later stage of my career is working on things that I don't believe in. And yeah, that is, what can I say? It's
You're enjoying it.
yeah. I like putting honest content in an honest way.
So I think it's a good time to talk about what's next, right? I mean, ultimately, I love the Kaizen approach and like Japanese philosophy and these ideas of just iterating on something with a foundation. The power of compounding, you know, if I look back, and we always do this, look back 6 months, look back a year, and you go, wow, how far we've come.
Yeah.
But we're just getting started, right? I mean, we've got 1,000,001 ideas all the time, and you're constantly one of those people that, I didn't ask for it, but you've gone and done it. Let me come and show you this. Da, 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 da. And I can't wait to keep doing that for the industry, and with the mission being, I guess, to that accessibility and connection and something that actually is useful and or entertaining for people in the oil industry and beyond. But we do have a big challenge, and we've always understood that the big challenge is translating that to everyone. So that was, you know, retail has been a big open up thing for us, because suddenly now we have a product that retail can take advantage of to benefit. Now we need to educate and train over time. And there's no way this is a long term project, because it just takes a long time to do this. And media's got a huge part to play. But I guess we still have that challenge of how do we create a serious captive audience if we're going to move our content into more and more iterations until it's effectively 24-hour news.
Yes.
I'm not concerned slightly about the production, because I think you'll do a great job and we'll work towards that. It's niche channels, I guess. So when I've mentioned this to you before, you said, but esports was seen like that.
Yes.
Right. And maybe just talk a bit about why you believe that evolution is going to happen here, basically.
So it's the iterative improvement side of things, the way we grow things iteratively here is really a way that my mind works. And I love the way of building a foundation. And then, you know, every layer goes on top. It's like building a decent pizza. You put your decent pizza base down. It starts with the dough. Dough's good, great. Sauce is good, great. And you build it and you build it and you build it. Yeah. And then you get a perfect pizza. And it's the same.
No, I think what's key is it's never perfect. It's always.
Well, that's true. That's true. But it's like, if it's in the studio, we built the studio. Okay, how can we make it better? We create a show and the show looks great and everybody loves it. How can we make it better? You know, we start designing studios in for the other offices. You know, and we haven't even started building them. We're already talking about, okay, so when we built them, how can we make them better? How can we improve? How can we improve our workflows? How can we? And it's never a contentment that we've done it. And so he touched upon like the Flux TV, Flux News product, which, you know, hasn't rolled out yet. Spoiler. But yeah, that's going to be basically a 24/7 news project, and we haven't even launched it. And we were looking at the prototype the other day, and it was sort of like, yeah, we can do this next, and we can do this next. And it's like, let's launch it, let's get it working, let's get it running, and then build.
But on the esports perspective, how are you drawing in people to be like, this is actually engaging?
Yes. Yeah, so esports was interesting, because if you think about esports, everybody thought esports was incredibly niche. You got to remember, video games are a huge market. A huge market that isn't represented by media. Not for the longest time, at least anyway. So you would have millions of people, you know, around the world playing video games, and as online games evolved, they became more competitive. You know, that origin started back in the 80s with things like competitive Pac-Man, for crying out loud. But, you know, as online games became a thing, that became more and more of a thing. And you had to have like LAN parties, which would be people taking their computers to big halls and just connecting more together to play big multiplayer games. And that's sort of what esports evolved from. And everybody thought that was quite niche because it wasn't amplified. It didn't have a voice, and media wasn't interested. You know, if you had gone to any media company up and down the world 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, and you had said to them, esports, it's huge, it's a massive thing, we should be involved with this, they would have gone, nah, it's just a bunch of nerds playing video games. Where is the market for this? And the esports industry, to their credit, and this is where I sort of got involved, was in this stage of it, was just like, screw it, we'll do it ourselves. If Sky don't want to be involved, if BBC don't want to be involved, and I was at Sky when I was really getting into esports, and I even took it to the head of Sky Sports, and I was just like, look, this is a thing, this is going to be huge, we should get involved in this. It's just guys playing video games. And they were poo-pooing it, and I kept on at them and on them. I was like, yeah, go on, just take a camera and go to one of these events and film it, and we'll throw it in the bin. And then I was like, nah, I'm going to do this permanent. And yeah, that's when I moved into it. But
the way it's taken off.
The way it's taken, well, it's interesting. It took off, and now it's gone back to, it's almost like it's put its own walls up now.
Really? Okay.
Which is really, really weird. So they got big, esports got big, and then, it's like, well, screw the larger media. We don't need them. And we've got our own way of doing it. We've got our own audience, and it's sort of like the walled gardens went. There was a point where they were trying to court, wider media to try and amplify it and grow the sport, but it never needed it. It never needed that legacy way of promoting it.
But I guess translating that to Onyx, we think that's the case for financial energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically niche, right? It's one of the biggest markets in the world. So people, if they're not interested right now, if we can create good enough content that's engaging enough, that speaks to an element of education and transparency as well as the important information, then you will hopefully steadily get that audience more captive.
Well, the thing is that there's a need and a desire to have a product out there which really captures what's going on at any given minute. There are ways of getting the information, but ultimately you turn on Bloomberg, and everybody's got Bloomberg on in their offices. You turn on CNN, or you turn on BBC News or whatever, and people have these on their office walls. They have them on in their offices, in their hotels, and they're watching these things. They're trying to keep their finger on the pulse, and they're always behind, and they're always too vague, and they're never right for the industry. And to be able to have a product that you can have literally sitting there, just like CNN, that's constantly speaking to what's going on.
But it's targeted and adding critical value. That's very rapid. I'm resonating with all these things, and each area has a part to play. Like research, their analytics, their analysis, they bring that in depth. But Jorge brings that on the money, on the information now, the rumors, the discussion points. I hear exactly what you're saying, which is why we're a big fan of live content, right? We're doing more and more live, because you need to know now. For example, when we did that Sunday night market open because of the Iranian situation with Israel, it needs to be now. Otherwise, you do it the next day. The events happened last night. It needs to be on the open. And I think that's exactly where we want to be. And we want to make sure that we can be there guiding people. That's kind of, at least also what I took from PR. You need the audience to be the hero and you're the guide. So people think they're not consuming your media because they might just have it on and they're half listening. But that is consuming media. So if you can be that person that is there always, and when they want to switch in, you've got something valuable to say, that's going to take some time to really nail, but I'm really excited to do that. And I think that we've proven the demand is there. When you look at our viewing numbers, I think, other industries would probably laugh, these like multi thousands, but that's because they've got, a very wide, easily to understand thing. We've got a very captive, engaged audience that from an industry's perspective is highly saturated, right? Like we've got a lot of people, I'm very proud to say, like have seen or heard our media. And I think the production is a huge part of that. Obviously we got to have the people who are delivering it be on point as well, which is another kind of underrated thing. I've seen competitors try this, but they don't realize how much is required in the preparation and the people to come in, week out, or even day in, day out and be delivering high value content. That is a skill, and that is something that's very wears you down, and you've got to be prepared to do it. Sorry, did you want to?
You've got to, there's two ways to look at it. You either attack the problem with money, which is what a lot of companies would do. because you don't necessarily understand it. So you're throwing money at production.
Which is what 80-90% of people do, from what I can see.
Or you throw energy at it.
Yeah. That's it, right? So we've got a passionate mission. It's coming across in all our teams. Everyone knows what they're trying to do for this mission. So it's not a big ask to be like, right, guys, for example, as I've just said, I now want this trader meeting. We're going to sell this to clients. We want clients to be able to listen in to our conversation about the market every 2 weeks. We're going to put production behind that. Then it's like, well, the traders are saying it themselves. This is what they think and this is what they believe in. They're not trying to put on a show. They're doing what they normally do, and it's just making it accessible. That's a big, big difference, right?
There's a lot we capture, which is quite interesting. There's stuff we produce, but even this conversation we're having now, I mean, we've got a script, but we've gone way off it because we're literally capturing a moment. This is a genuine conversation that's just happening between you and me. Another good example, what we're going to go and film right off the back of this, which is Trading Corner. So we're literally going to take this whole kit, move it to the trading floor, do Trading Corner. And Trading Corner is great because it's not scripted. Yeah. You've got senior traders talking about what's really going on.
That's it. People say they don't like being in front of camera, and I understand that. But the funny thing is, it's because they're thinking they're relating it back to the days when you were asked to be in a play at school or something like that.
Yes.
There aren't any lines. We're asking you to do what you're very good at and what you're speaking about day in, day out, and just do it in front of a camera. And as soon as you say that, and they give it one go, I mean, the people who said they'd never be on camera are on all the time now, and it's amazing to see. And I hope we do more and more of that.
One of the things I like to tell people is that thing there, the camera there, that's the third person in the room.
Yeah. Right.
So right now, I know there's another person in this conversation. I know that they're listening to this conversation.
Might be getting very bored.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I wish this guy would stop prattling on. Yeah. But yeah, it's when you're down the pub and there's always a quiet guy in the pub who's listening to the conversation quite intently. You don't exclude them by just talking amongst yourselves. They're still involved in the conversation, and that's what the camera is. It's just one person.
And you try not to hold back, right? You're trying to be open.
It's not an audience of hundreds or thousands of people. It's just one person.
That's great.
And it's there. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, there's plenty more to do, and you feel that way, and you're excited, and I know that to be true anyway. And I hope audiences out there enjoyed that conversation, because there is, as I say, a hell of a lot that goes behind what we do. And even if you didn't, it's still there to go and look at if one day you're curious. Thanks very much for listening, and thanks, Martin, for doing this. And see you guys again soon.